episode. I was watching a lot of content. I was reading nonstop. I wanted to always get knowledge that tells me the same thing, just to reassure me that I'm okay, that everything is going to be fine. I could never have enough of this information. And that was actually a way for me to distract myself from the things that really matter. Eating peanut butter for a year or so as my main diet, I know it. And I can't explain it, and I don't need to prove it to anybody that we are more than meets the eye, first of all. Second of all, we are clearly limited in our perception from the moment we are stepping on this planet. I mean, we're coming out of a vagina. And actually, I think it's probably much earlier. We are conditioned on this planet, and it's part of the game, you know. Being conditioned is not a bad thing, inherently. Highland Visions. Good evening, or good afternoon, or good morning. This is Self Podcast, episode number 2, part of a series about consistency. The whole idea here is how to build consistency no matter what. In the first episode, we discussed about finding something that you truly love and stick to it for an undetermined number of days. But, you know, for simplicity, I think it's probably a good idea to give yourself at least a number so that you can feel like you are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I would go with no less than 30 days to do something every day, to then look back and see what happened, what changed. And to make things more interesting, I chose, not on purpose, but I chose to start this journey yesterday when I knew that I'm going to be visiting a friend for 3 days or 4, and I'm going to be in somebody else's house. And I mean, this is my lifestyle anyway, but in this context, there'll be a level of socializing, there'll be a level of creating a space in another person's house where I can create my consistency because I require a working space. You know, to record this, I need to put my microphone somewhere, I need to put my laptop somewhere, the audio card, and interestingly enough, the only place I could find in the room that I have right now that doesn't have a desk was in the cupboard. In the Narnia kind of cupboard where magic happens. So if you're listening to this, I'm sure you can probably see a screenshot or a photo. I wanted to record video as well because I find this setup quite funny and interesting, and I think people will be just hypnotized by the idea of having your setup in a cupboard, empty cupboard as well, because this is a guest room, and probably the sound is influenced by that because there is this box, wooden box, where the microphone resides. I had to be a bit creative because initially I wanted to put everything by the bed, or, you know, there's this place full of drawers and nothing in this room makes sense. There is also a mattress that takes 90% of the room. There is the bed. So it's literally, it's like 1 square meter of space. And then I realized, wait a second, what if I opened the cupboard, and I opened the cupboard and voila, Narnia revealed itself in front of my eyes. Okay, enough about this. So I'm showing up. This is the second day, and today, after meeting my friend, the topic of the conversation was whether our beliefs can change matter, if we can create our own reality solely on our beliefs, and whether there is an objective reality or not. And we were talking about the fact that my diet for a very long time, for like a year or so, was 90% based on rice cakes with peanut butter and some maybe honey on top or salt, depending on how I felt, if I want some, you know, dessert, or if I wanted some savory. And after a year or so, I felt like, okay, because the principle was, what can I eat that I can never have enough of? At that time, I felt ready to believe, I felt ready to try this idea that we don't need nutrition from food. There are a lot of people on this planet that are breatharians, and I've never met a breatharian in my, physical reality, except on, online. The closest I got was meeting a fruitarian some years ago in a rainbow community event in Morocco, and it wasn't just one person, it was a couple. So I'm assuming that they didn't lie to me, that they are living raw fruit base. And yeah, this whole idea that there are people on this planet who claim they can thrive, not just survive, thrive with no food and no water, some of them. And there is even a person who participated in a show on television for 9 days. He was in a place, filmed 24 hours, and even the water that he would use when he brushes his teeth was measured. So whenever he spits it out, it'd be exactly the same amount. And the principle was that he was not eating and not drinking anything for 9 days or so, and everything was public because nobody believed him. So he's like, okay, look, if you don't believe me, let's put it to test, and let's make it public. Why not? And that happened. I mean, it could be just a story, but these facts can be checked. So yeah, his name is Ray Maor. He has a YouTube channel. I haven't watched his channel in more than a year now, but I was quite fascinated to see how he navigates his, life being a breatharian. So that made me feel like, wait a second, if people can survive without food, then what we know, basically what we are being fed is not necessarily true. All this information we're getting, all this knowledge that we're getting is not necessarily true. And it's relative. And I mean, the fact that life is relative, the fact that reality is relative has been already proven scientifically through double slit experiment, also the famous Schrodinger's cat experiment. And it just simply shows that reality is based on the observer's perception. And if the observer is taken out of the equation, there is nothing to be observed. If there is no observer, there is nothing, basically. So the observer is vital for reality to exist. And this, was proven scientifically. But obviously nobody talks about the Ray Maor being on television, not eating and not drinking anything for 9 days. And yes, his blood levels were consistent throughout these 9 days. There was a medic, and the medic measured his blood sugar levels, and they seemed to be consistent throughout this time. So wait a second. And yeah, as I said, nobody's talking about that because everybody would talk about the idea of not needing food anymore. All this idea of consumerism would be put to test, and the whole economy would not be the same. So clearly, we are not there yet, and we are not ready yet. And I've heard a lot of people who said, oh yeah, even if it's possible, I would still eat because I really enjoy food so much that I couldn't stop, Just because you can survive without food, it doesn't mean you shouldn't eat it. That's a fair point. So coming back to eating peanut butter for a year or so as my main diet, I know it. And I can't explain it, and I don't need to prove it to anybody that we are more than meets the eye, first of all. Second of all, we are clearly limited in our perception from the moment we are stepping on this planet. I mean, we are coming out of a vagina. And actually, I think it's probably much earlier. We are conditioned on this planet, and it's part of the game, Being conditioned is not a bad thing inherently. It's just one of the conditions to be on this planet. You have to have some form of belief system. So after a while, when we become adults, we start to understand that we are limiting ourselves through how we think and what we do. And then it's a game of deprogramming, basically, and implementing programs that are aligned with who we want to be, what we want to become, what we want to experience. And the sky is the limit. But the problem is that once you are conditioned, you can't believe things anymore easily. You can't just swap beliefs just because you want to, just because you want to believe that you can survive without food. Now, stopping eating food from tomorrow, for example, and water, that would be insane if you don't know what you're doing, if you're not aware of your whole being 100% to understand your limitations. Just because we can, it doesn't mean it's going to be good for us, especially if we're doing it without proper education. What I mean by that is that a lot of people, once they discovered life without food is possible, they started fasting, and a lot of people even probably died. I've heard that somebody died because they were too much, too soon. The body is not ready for that immediately, because you have to let go of all these programs that we inherited. And I think the way they're doing it right now, they're creating programs of 21 days where you actually do it in a facilitated way. You can't just stop eating food just because you want to be free, You can try 1-2 days, maybe at first, especially if you have never fasted in your life. That's the interesting thing, and a lot of people will be like, oh, look, if that's true, I'm going to try to just stop eating and see what happens. And what will happen is you will face your fear. You will face like, what if this is not true? What if it's like, what if I can't do it, And how are you ever going to justify yourself to yourself that actually you can do it? So you need to learn, not just learn, you need to acquire a sense of inner power that comes from experience, from challenging yourself and going through those challenges and coming to the other side. So for example, one way of developing such a thing as inner power is building consistency in something you love. Building anything in this life, it will feel so amazing because you build inner power. Inner power means inner freedom. It means freedom from limitations. Who wouldn't want to be free, right? I think a lot of people actually prefer comfort over freedom, and that is another topic for another time. That's also part of being conditioned, and that's very, very interesting how there is this story about an elephant that it's not just an elephant. This is funny because I know people who said that they've seen how they domesticate elephants. There is a stick that they stick into the ground, and then there's a rope, and obviously they tie the elephant with that rope. And when the elephant is very little, he can't really escape that rope and that stick. But obviously over time, the elephant grows bigger and bigger and bigger. And the funny thing is that the elephant never escapes, even though he could easily break that stick and the rope. And I think that really speaks loads about everything in this life, on this planet, the conditioning that happens. And another example would be a dog that is obsessed with catching that ball and bringing the ball to the owner because it was programmed through a reward system and punishment system as well to bring a ball to the owner, to chase a ball. And interestingly enough, even though the reward disappears, you don't give the dog cookies anymore, he still will feel desire, this urge to play with the ball. Like, I don't know if you've seen those kind of dogs that they know nothing but just to play all the time. All they want is just play with the ball. So those are deeply domesticated dogs that are lost beyond salvation because they are literally drooling for the ball, but they're and obviously you've heard about the Pavlov's dog. So coming back to the elephant, an elephant who can break that stick doesn't break it because it's conditioned to believe since little that he cannot escape it. And he never questions that ever again. And I think it's very, very likely. It's not just I think, it's quite obvious that us humans are trained and domesticated as well when we're little to believe certain stuff. We never question these beliefs ever again. Unless we feel down or we feel like something is not really working, so we start questioning why I never feel happy or why I rarely feel happy, what's happening. So when we start asking these questions, we learn that actually we have some form of control in our lives. The control of learning, first of all, how we can deprogram and how we can reprogram ourselves to be a better version of who we are. And like I'm not necessarily an adept for this sort of mentality that we have to become better version of ourselves, because this also comes with a price of not being okay with who we are in this moment. And I feel like these two aspects of human existence are important, and they can coexist even though they contradict each other. On one hand, we can be happy as we are. I'm okay where I am and I don't want to be any different. And on the other hand, I want to grow, I want to evolve, I want to change, I want to be a better version of who I am. Because you can work on becoming a better version of yourself from a place of I am happy anyway, rather than, oh, I'm not happy right now, so I'm going to have to do something to become happy. So I think a lot of people mistake this with chasing happiness or chasing a better state with this idea of becoming better, and they miss the present moment. And in this way, you are like a dog chasing its tail. You will never be able to quite get it, because you're missing the point of you can only be happy now. You can never be happy in the future, because the future doesn't really exist. And I know this sounds stupid, because people are like, of course there is future, there's going to be Wednesday next week. Yeah, but when Wednesday is going to come, guess what? It's still going to be now. And I've heard this numerous times, and it seems like people still don't get it. In order to change your life, you have to be the change in the moment, now, right now. So if you want to be a better person, you have to be a better person right now. You can't do it tomorrow. And it's not about the things you do to become a better person. You have to feel a better person already. And in this moment, you have a limited amount of things you can control and do. And one of these things is taking action on what you feel is important in this moment. So if that means going for a run or going for a walk, stop this recording and go do it. But there's another problem I remember facing when I was really wanting to change my life. I got into a pattern of listening and being addicted to other people's sense of purpose, if that makes any sense. I was watching a lot of content. I was reading nonstop. I wanted to always get knowledge that tells me the same thing, just to reassure me that I'm okay, that everything is going to be fine. I could never have enough of this information. And that was actually a way for me to distract myself from the things that really matter. Taking action, because the reason I wouldn't take action is because that would feel uncomfortable. So that is another thing here, that doing the things we love can sometimes feel uncomfortable, and actually quite often at the beginning, because when we are deciding to show love to ourselves by showing up and do the thing that we want to do, we have to face the resistance that comes with it. And the resistance is formed there as a habit of lack of self-love. And this is something we touched on in the first episode, when I was saying that me doing this is an act of self-love, and you doing what you're doing is an act of self-love when you do it for yourself and you don't do it for anybody else, but you do it strictly for your well-being because you love doing so, and you show up every day and you do it. That's an act of self-love. But the problem is that humanity is domesticated to not love themselves, to not love ourselves. And this comes in a very strange way, because we're constantly bombarded with a better version of who we can be, and we will never feel enough. And yeah, this creates a lot of self-hatred, that we are never enough. And I think this is exactly the root cause of all unhappiness on this planet right now. We are unable to see the lie that we are not enough in this very moment. Once we accept that we are okay, that we are enough in this very moment, everything will change. But we're not ready to just believe that that's true, because we're talking about beliefs right now. This has to come through some form of process where you have to undo all the lies that you've believed and all the programs that you created in your lives that fed this lie. So when you start to believe that you're not good enough, when your parents are telling you you're a good boy, you're a good girl, if you do a certain thing, you can either be good or bad depending on what you do, that you can actually be a bad person. The fact that we start to believe that we can be a bad person, then we start to do things that prove that to ourselves, That explains all the silly things that we do to sabotage ourselves. If you are suffering from procrastination and you end up doing silly things that just kill all the progress that you've made, if you can't keep your word to yourself, if you say you're going to do that and you're never going to do it, this is your subconscious literally obeying what you believe. And that is that you are not worthy of love, that you're not good enough. And, the subconscious is just here to support us, actually. And this is very interesting because nobody can force us to believe anything. I mean, we are domesticated, okay? Like as humans, when we're little, we're being told certain things and we start to form ideas of who we are. So those become forced beliefs, okay? But then when we start to have some form of self-awareness, we start to understand that, oh, okay, actually, yeah, this happened to me, but I have the power to change it. But nobody can come in our lives and absolve us of all these lies. There's not going to be a physical Jesus Christ that's going to come and say, okay, I absolve you of all these beliefs, and from now on you're going to feel love, and you're basically going to feel you're going to be Buddha, just right now, because this life wouldn't make sense if that was true. There will be no journey, there will be no hero's journey, there will be no beauty in transcending these limitations. And this is answering the question of, if there is a God, why there is so much suffering on this planet? Why do we have to go through all these lies? Why we don't have discernment as children to decide whether we want to believe certain things or not? Why do we end up believing these lies? And as God, you'd want to experience something else. You would want to experience a movie when you are part of a movie and you don't realize that you're in that movie, and there is a particular plot, and the movie ends, even though it was super, super dramatic, and maybe you suffered, maybe you, I don't know, you really had a shitty life. At the end of the movie, you're going to feel like, oh, I am God. And this was such a fucking good movie, which I could have never had from the perspective of God. Because, if I know that I'm almighty, all knowing, then I can't also believe that I am this mortal human being. So we are put in some form of amnesia as humans on purpose. And, isn't that interesting? Oh, okay, but that's never going to solve our bank account situation, just knowing these things. So we still need to take some action. It helps a lot to know that, okay, actually, now that I know that this is all a game, I can be a little bit more less serious about things. I can take things a little bit more lightly, and maybe I can introduce a bit of play in my life, and maybe I can just relax a little bit more and enjoy myself more and accept myself a bit more. Wouldn't be so nice to wake up every morning and say, okay, maybe I'm not, a millionaire, even though I wanted to be, but I'm grateful that I have a bed. I'm grateful that I have a shelter, and that I have friends, that I have family. And yeah, maybe I'm heartbroken right now because I tried to love and I failed, and some people didn't really appreciate who I was, for example, or somebody died in my life and I really miss that person so much and it breaks my heart. But being alive, being aware that we are alive is a miracle. What are the odds for you to be aware of this voice right now? What is the chance of you being aware that you're alive? And what is the chance for you to be alive in the first place? I mean, your awareness. You are aware of a life on a planet. And you can't understand how is it possible for this to exist in the first place. Who created everything? What created everything? You can't explain the past, you can't explain the future. It's truly a wonder, and it's an unknown wonder. The faster we surrender to this unknown, the faster we enjoy this wonder and stop complaining about the things that we don't have and focus on the magic of being alive and, this human perception of what's good and what's bad that is completely distorted actually based on societal values that are artificial after all. I don't have everything, and no human has everything anyway, because we are clearly a sack of bones on this planet, and we will forever be limited being just a sack of bones. But we are more than just a sack of bones. And from this perspective of just a sack of bones, we will never ever feel whole and complete, because that's not who we really are. If you are identifying yourself with just being a human and you expect to feel happy all the time and accomplished and satisfied, then that's going to be a journey for you. Because as a human, only as a human, you will never feel enough, because you are not everything as a human. You are an individual as a human. But what resides inside this sack of bones, this human, is awareness, God awareness. So as a human, when you connect with this life, then that's when you start to feel, oh, I'm enough, I'm everything, everything is fine, I'm God, but I'm still gonna be a human, I'm still gonna, hiccup, and I'm still gonna fart, and I'm gonna trip on those wires, and I'm just gonna make mistakes, and I'm gonna suffer like a dog. But that doesn't make life less wonderful and magical. It's just gonna add contrast and depth. And yeah, life is really worth celebrating when we can. And when life is tough, just to have that anchor is so important. And that anchor is, you put it there, and nobody can put it there for you. And the way to put that anchor there is through consistency, through determination to find yourself no matter what, and through a consistent push. Without this consistent desire kept alive, we will become dead inside, and we will give up on everything. But when life is rough, what usually happens is, okay, I had enough of suffering. I want to know how I can improve my life, how I can feel better, so to speak. And then you find ways to self-love. And when you start to love yourself unconditionally, no matter what, that's when true joy happens, not any second sooner. It's all about learning to accept who and where we are in this moment right now. That is the journey. And when we are in a place where, imagine a life where you know who you are and you love yourself no matter what, at any given time and point, no matter how hard your life is, no matter how controversial and conspiracy-like it feels to you. So imagine yourself being so content with yourself, knowing exactly who you are, and not only that you accept all your failures in this moment right now. This reminds me of the workshop that I'm going to attend called Enlightenment Intensive, and it's all about that. It's about asking the question, who am I? And one of the purpose of this workshop is to learn who we are so that we can finally relax and accept where we are and who we are. This is a time for me to stop, and I want to thank you for your attention. If you show up for yourself every day in anything, you're gonna feel closer and closer to who you really are, and most importantly, you're gonna build self-reliance and, of course, confidence. Because when you do something every day, you show to yourself that you are able to do whatever you want. The main struggle for us humans is that we want to do things and we never do them, so we lose our self-respect. That is huge. When you start to understand that the reason why you're not doing what you're doing, what you want to do, is also because you lost respect for yourself and you lost the belief that you can do it. Okay, I'm sending you much love, and I'm sending you all the energy you need to take action and be consistent in something you love. Bye. Highland Visions.